Do you find yourself freezing up during games? Well, in this video, I'm going to go into the main reasons why athletes freeze up. And then I'm also going to go over a strategy that you can use if you are freezing up during games right now. Now, I have put timestamps, so if you want to go ahead and just skip to where I start talking about the strategy, because you already know why you're freezing up, go ahead and feel free to do that. But what does it mean to be freezing up? Well, when you're freezing up, this might look like you hesitating on a shot. I'm working with a basketball player right now, and we were talking about how when he's playing down low, he hesitates on his shots. He's freezing up. Another example might be, you're freezing up at the plate, you're not swinging good pitches. But why does this freezing up happen? Especially if you know that you're wanting to perform your best. Well, there are a few different kind of mental game reasons that we can point to, or more specifically, mental game challenges that might be causing you to freeze up. And one of them is going to be fear. If you are afraid of making a mistake, what's the best way to avoid making the mistake? To not do the act that's going to cause you to make the mistake. This is something that I was talking to a soccer player about yesterday when we were going over him trying to kind of avoid making mistakes, and because he was afraid of making mistakes during a game. And he was saying that he's typically holding himself back during games, and he's not playing as aggressively as he would like. And I was telling him, if you're afraid of making mistakes, what's your mind going to do? Well, your mind's going to try to keep you safe because you don't want to make mistakes, and you don't want to specifically beat yourself up or have your teammates or coaches or whomever be mad at you if you do make the mistake. And so what's going to be the way that your mind's going to avoid that situation, help keep you safe? Well, you're not going to put yourself in those situations during games where you can make mistakes. So that might be why you freeze up. You're freezing up due to fear. Another reason is going to stem off of this fear, and that is performance anxiety. If you're dealing with a lot of performance anxiety going into games, this performance anxiety in and of itself can cause you to freeze, right? It's where we have the fight, flight, or freeze response. I've talked to many athletes who feel like their minds go blank when they are experiencing a lot of anxiety, and when their minds go blank, they freeze up. They're not performing freely. Another reason why you might be freezing up during games is going to be because of perfectionism. This perfectionism ties into the fear because if you're afraid of making mistakes, a lot of times you're wanting to play too perfectly. Now, this is happening to the basketball player that I mentioned earlier. He is a post player, and he is trying so hard to make the perfect pass or take the perfect shot or get his team even the perfect shot, to where when he's going up and gets an offensive rebound, he's not immediately going back up with it. He's freezing up a little bit. He's hesitating because he's trying to make sure that it's the perfect shot. So if you feel like you're trying to be too perfect, that can be another reason why you might be holding yourself back and freezing up during games. And then the fourth reason is going to be self-doubt. If you doubt yourself, if you aren't very confident, if you're not trusting in yourself and your skills, then you might be hesitating during games and you might be freezing up. One of the things that you really need in order to be able to perform your best is you need to have this feeling of just going out there and playing freely and going after it. Now, that's a feeling that is very tough to have if you're doubting yourself. So if you doubt yourself, you might find yourself freezing up simply because you don't have the level of confidence that you need to play aggressively and play as freely as possible. Now, knowing that these are the four main reasons, we have fear, anxiety, perfectionism, and self-doubt. Knowing that those are the main reasons why you might be freezing up, what can you do about this? The strategy that you want to use to stop freezing up during games is going to come in two different parts. First, we really want to look at why you're freezing up in the first place and start to understand that. The reason that we want to understand that is because we need to get a good idea of what you're thinking like during games, especially what you're thinking like in these moments when you are freezing up. An example is that basketball player that I was mentioning earlier, where he is freezing up because he's trying too hard to be perfect. Now, if we can get clear on why he's freezing up, and he's freezing up because he's trying too hard to be perfect, what we need to do is we need to work through this feeling of perfectionism. We need to help him figure out, why are you wanting to be perfect? And more importantly, kind of accepting the possibility of mistakes. Not because he wants to make mistakes, but in order to play freely, he needs to accept that mistakes might happen. So for yourself, you need to identify what's causing me to freeze up. Is it the fear that I have? Is it anxiety? Am I trying to be too perfect? Or is it self-doubt? The reason that you want to identify what's causing you to freeze up is because we need to attack that root cause, right? If we can work through that root cause, what's going to happen is you're going to find yourself playing more naturally, playing more freely during games. So let's quickly talk about a strategy that you can use for each one of these areas, because step 2 is you need to attack the cause, right? You need to work on overcoming your fear, your anxiety, your perfectionism, or building your confidence. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over one simple tool that you can use to start overcoming and managing each one of these challenges. For fear, the tool is going to be visualization. You need to get yourself seeing yourself succeed. So what you can do on your own or leading into a game is you can perform some visualization where you see yourself perform the skill that you're currently freezing up with. This visualization is going to help to build your confidence and build the belief in yourself that you can really go out there and perform well. For anxiety, it's going to be breathing. You need to do a breathing exercise, and specifically I like count breathing because this is going to help you feel very relaxed and calm, and it's also going to keep your attention off of the outcome, which was one of the main driving forces of anxiety. So what you can do is you can breathe in for a count of 5, breathe out for a count of 10. Now you can do this before the game, you can do this the night before, you can do this during the game if you have time, you can do this when you're on the sideline, anytime you want. Whenever you're feeling anxious, just turn your attention onto the breath. For perfectionism, this one's going to be a little bit of a two-part strategy actually, or kind of two different tools. One tool is going to be some performance objectives. So you need to set yourself some process-based performance objectives for games. These are going to be cues that you can focus on, things that you want to do in order to succeed. You want to set yourself these process goals that are going to help keep your attention more on the process instead of worrying so much about being perfect. But kind of the second tool is you want to start getting comfortable, and I know this sounds funny, but you want to start getting comfortable with mistakes. You've got to stop viewing mistakes as something bad, and that's going to help let go of this feeling of I have to be perfect. So to start getting more comfortable with mistakes, what you can do is you can begin looking at mistakes as a way to learn, a way to grow, a way to improve as a player. So after practices and games, I really encourage you to go back and look over the mistakes you made and reframe them and think, how can I learn from that mistake, and how am I going to work on that mistake and improve moving forward? And then with self-doubt, we really want to focus on your thinking. So the tool is going to be self-talk. You need to make sure that you have a really nice self-talk routine in place that's working on building your confidence. Now, if you're freezing up and you know that fear, for example, is what is really holding you back and causing you to freeze up, then apply some visualization. But if you also know you feel a little anxious, use the breathing too. And then if you also want to build your confidence, use the self-talk. The really cool thing about all 4 of these tools, or 4/5 with the perfectionism one, is that you can apply all of them, and all of them combined and each of them individually is going to help you stop freezing up during games. Now, in addition to these tools, something else that's really important is getting into the right mindset going into the game. So what I've done right here is I've linked another video that goes into detail on creating your own pregame routine as an athlete. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I put out new videos each week on sports psychology and mental training.